Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and what you are looking at there in front of you appears to be some sort of a crazy freak of nature, but it is actually the Lost World Jurassic Park Series 1 Bonebreaker Carnotaurus figure. And this is a very strange figure, although I will say it's actually a figure that's near and dear to my heart because it is the only Carnotaurus from the Jurassic series that I was ever able to acquire as a child, and this figure here is in fact that figure from my childhood. It's one I played with for many, many years, so you might see some wear and tear on the figure. Unfortunately, it comes with a ton of extras, and I don't have any of them anymore. I don't know whatever happened to all the capture gear or the dino damage wound cover. I don't have any of it anymore. Maybe someday I'll be able to search through my parents' house and I'll find it and acquire it back, but as of right now, I strictly have just the dinosaur. So, unfortunately, that's all we have to review today. But the figure as a whole is very strange. It's got a horrible posture issue going on. You can see that it has to stand extremely upright for it to balance. If I actually try to put it in a more natural position, it will absolutely fall right on its face. But once you actually stand it up high like this, the mouth opens due to the action feature, so now to actually have your figure balance out for you, it has to stand up really high and have its mouth looking ridiculous, like it currently does, kind of dislocating its jaw and everything. But I mean, other than that, it does look pretty cool if you can get it to have its mouth closed and somehow balance it out, maybe if you balanced it on something, and does sport some pretty darn nice detailing as most Kenner figures did. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Carnotaurus, you can see that the Carnotaurus does sport some really nice detailing all over the head. You can see kind of like some really nice fine skin texture going on, as well as quite a bit of osteoderms poking up here and there. You do have quite a bit of them actually, especially here on the lower jaw. You could see just a ton of osteoderms all over the place on our Carnotaurus. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out quite nicely there, as well as the detailing around the eye. The eye is painted with a nice greenish coloration, kind of a slit pupil and a white spot to insinuate eye shine, which I feel like does look quite nice and definitely looks good in comparison to the overall body color. You could see the trademark Carnotaurus horn up here on the top. Well, I guess horns because there's two of them, but on this side we can only see one. But that sports some pretty decent detailing as well. Not too bad, I will say. If you look at the top of the head of the Carnotaurus, he has almost like an armored appearance right there. As you get to the top of the head, it starts to transition to like scoots that do run down the course of the body, which of course is very trademark to a Carnotaurus. The inside of the mouth, you can get a very, very good look at because the mouth opens ridiculously wide. You can see it's primarily a purplish coloration in there. You can also see the detail does look really quite nice. Very nice textured tongue as well, which is really cool to see. The teeth are all kind of sculpted together, and for the most part they look alright. I think they're nicely painted. There's no real sloppiness or anything to any of the teeth as far as I can tell. You can also see that skin flap here on the inside of the mouth. Once you get the Carnotaurus's mouth to a decent position, you can now see that that is in fact the skin flap. Once you open it, of course, it quite easily disconnects, but it's got some detail, but just nothing over the top, just kind of a few lines that they've put into it. Once you start to move down the body of the Carnotaurus, you can see that the skin texture continues to look really nice and almost has a little bit of a muted appearance in a few spots, but if you actually get close and look at it, if my camera would focus on it, you can definitely see that that skin texture is still present. It's just very smooth for the most part, but then the higher into the back you get, you can see that that skin texture gets a little bit rougher and definitely a lot more visible. You can also see that there are ridges that run along the spinal column as well as some nice scoots that run down the side of our Carnotaurus. And the Carnotaurus primarily is like a brownish coloration, almost like a reddish brown in certain areas, and then has this nice black that runs down. So it's nothing overly flashy, but it looks nice, I will definitely say that. As you move down into the arm, you can pick up on the shoulder blade there. Very nice detailing of the arm of the Carnotaurus, even though it is quite incredibly unrealistic. Not even remotely close to what a Carnotaurus's arm would look like, digits and all. Very incorrect, but it looks really cool, and considering the Jurassic Park dinosaurs are pretty much just movie monsters that are genetically created, you can let it slide. But the hands actually look really quite creepy, and the nails are painted on the hands. So Mattel, once again, take note to that because I think it looks a lot better once the nails are painted. But there is actually a ton of detailing that you can see actually held within the hands and the arms. Very, very nice sculpt work overall. incredibly nicely done. Even on the underside of the hands, look at that. Really beautifully sculpted. And I forgot to state, up here in the neck, there's quite a bit of like skin folding going on here. It's really weird looking, almost looks like the Dilophosaurus when it has its kind of frill at like ease down on its body. It almost has a similar appearance to that with the amount of skin folding going on that they have there. I'm not sure why it is sculpted that way, but it does look like that. Moving down here into the body, you can see a really smooth transition between the brown and then the light underbelly, which is a green. You can see the dino damage, of course, on our Carnotaurus is the rib cage, and you can also see some of the muscles and stuff back there. Quite nicely done, even though it's kind of a weird spot for it, but it's still nicely done. Kind of some more skin reacting and skin folding going on here in the Carnotaurus. Nice detailing of the stomach region once again, and all the paint is beautifully applied. It really looks very nicely like skin color instead of just paint on a figure. As you move down into the legs, you can see that the legs are extremely muscular, beautiful muscle tone in both the calf and thigh areas, very nice kneecap, and you can see the osteoderms run down into the leg as well. As we move down into the foot sculpt, the foot sculpt looks okay. It's nothing over the top, nothing crazy detailed or anything almost like a generic dinosaur foot sculpt, but it's decent, and it does have painted nails, except for the dew claw. Nobody ever remembers the dew claw. And then we come back up into the tail, and we run out the length of the tail, some more pretty nice skin texture, lots and lots of osteoderms to be found. Again, some more kind of creasing going on in the skin on the underside of the tail, but for the most part, again, it's really nicely detailed. It's just sort of a goofy looking figure. You're not really going to see too much difference on this side as opposed to the other side. Again, I did say that you're going to see some kind of paint wear on mine, especially right there on the horn, right there under the eye, as well as down here. But mine has also taken a beating over the years, and somehow the JP logo has survived, so I'm quite happy with that aspect of our Carnotaurus. But again, it's really cool looking as far as the paint application goes, and the sculpt I think is quite nicely done as far as the fine detailing goes, even if it's full of inaccuracies. It's just that it's very awkward overall as far as this figure goes. And now to show you what I was talking about its balancing issues, because right there, I mean, it looks like it's a fairly comfortable position for a Carnotaurus, even though he for some reason has his head down in a really weird position because the neck probably should have come up like this for the Carnotaurus to look straight. But again, they have him really positioned in this tripod position so that for him to stand naturally, he has to really be up high. And this is honestly probably the most comfortable position that you can get this Carnotaurus in, as far as looking like the way a Carnotaurus might actually have stood without it falling on its face. And even still, the tail's not on the ground, but it still looks quite awkward, although it's probably the best I think I've ever actually gotten this to balance out in this positioning. But once you actually kind of bring it down into what again would be a more comfortable position, it just drops right on its face every single time. It cannot stand, no matter what you do. I don't know why they chose to make this figure the way they did, but I mean, it's life. It is what it is. As far as articulation goes, of course, you can see that you have the articulation of the jaw, but it is the upper jaw. You also have articulation in the arms, and then articulation in the legs. You also have the action feature, which, when you pull the leg back, causes the mouth to open nice and wide and chomp. However, the chomping action is not strong enough to actually pick anything up at all. It's not like with a button or anything where you could maybe chomp the mouth down and hold it so that it stays shut. With this, all you do is you pull this open, you let the leg go, and now the jaw is just real dangly. So you're not going to pick anything up with it, unfortunately. That's just, again, one of the weaknesses of the figure for sure. But as far as a size goes, and we're going to have to stand him back up again in a goofy look, for a length, if we're going to go like this, you're looking at about 13 inches or about 33, maybe 33.5 centimeters. And for a height, about 9 3/4 inches or around 25 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pachylovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our Carnotaurus, the Bonebreaker version. And you can see that it does have some pretty darn good size to it, that is for sure. And it is a nice looking figure overall as far as both the sculpt and paint goes, so we can't really take too many points away from it just because of the odd stance and balancing problems and kind of a weak action feature, because it does have a pretty nice look to it, even if it does have to have its mouth unreasonably wide open. But Next to these figures, you'll hopefully have a good idea of the overall beauty of this Carnotaurus from the Kenner Lost World Jurassic Park series, but you should also have a good idea of its size. So this Lost World Jurassic Park Bonebreaker Carnotaurus figure from Hasbro/Kenner is a really nice looking figure in certain aspects and kind of a goofy looking figure in others. It has some really nice fine detailing. Honestly, Kenner never seemed to skip out on any type of the detailing of their figures, and this is a pretty good example of that because the Carnotaurus overall has a very nice look when it comes to the fine details as well as the paint job. I feel like the paint job does look really quite cool, and all of the colors play off of each other really nicely and actually looks extremely natural on the figure overall. All of that dark black that kind of leaks down onto the body in certain areas looks really, really nice. And of course, we also have to state that you can see that there is quite a bit of paint variation on the head there with those blacks and everything running down, as well as paint that runs the entire course of the tail, along with nail paint on both the hands and feet. So again, Mattel, if they could just take a few notes as far as how to apply a really nice paint application, you'll probably learn a lot from these older Kenner figures. And this one specifically is really nicely painted. I love the paint work on this figure, and all of the paint again looks very nice the way it's applied and transitions smoothly between that reddish brown and that green underbelly. Such a really nice smooth transition. So beautiful paintwork for sure, and very nice fine detailing on the figure. Of course, we do have to take into consideration the fact that the figure is highly inaccurate in pretty much every way. There isn't really much of anything on this figure that I could state really does look like our current understandings of what a Carnotaurus looked like, so the figure is kind of an off-the-wall style Carnotaurus, especially with those arms, but it also has a very movie monster type of a look to it, so it kind of looks a little bit scary, I guess, a little bit menacing just with the hands alone, and kind of a vicious looking face when his mouth isn't open so wide. The action feature is okay when you can just kind of sit back and look at it working, but when you actually try to use it, if you were a kid like me that played with this figure, it's almost useless, does not really work unless you're just going to let your imagination do most of the work for you. But now being an adult collector, I think the figure as far as posability goes is definitely a very big downside because you can't really position it in a really nice natural position, because even at the positioning of it kind of standing with its tail up off the ground a little bit like I had shown you guys, the mouth is still really wide open and much wider than it should be. I think the only real way to be able to position this Carnotaurus in a nice natural-ish looking way and not have it look absolutely ridiculous with its mouth hanging wide open is to maybe balance it on one leg and maybe have it taking down another dinosaur in your collection or something, because then you could possibly have the mouth stay closed. But other than these issues that I've brought up, I still do really quite like the figure, and overall is definitely a large chunk of my childhood that I spent playing with this really cool Carnotaurus figure from the Lost World Jurassic Park line. So if you would like to pick this up, it's going to be pretty darn expensive because it is quite the pricey, very long retired figure. So I will try to find one for you on eBay where I can link you to it, but unfortunately, as I said, it's going to be pretty pricey. So if you want to take a jump on it and buy it even for a higher price, again, check the description as I may have a link there. But if you ever happen to encounter the figure regardless, it is absolutely worth buying because it is still a really cool piece of Jurassic Park toy history and a fun, off-the-wall kind of Carnotaurus figure. So either way, one way or another, make sure you pick this up if you can, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.